So let's talk about bodybuilding. Last year, at a obviously men's classic physique, Chris Bumstead defeated Breon Ansley.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that win? Because I know a lot of people are kind of saying that Breon is much more superior to everybody else in that division. So when he beat him, I mean, what did you think about it? And then did you see it coming?
I did. For me, it's very understandable the win because I understand the division.
Hmm.
If you're going to ask me as just a bodybuilding and not tell me what division it is, Breon is very well rounded, and so was George Peterson. He was arguably one of the best bodybuilders on that stage that day. He was just conditioned, massive, and just all around. He had all the tools for bodybuilding. But there's a certain criteria with classic, and they're going for also an overall look. So that being said, I can totally understand. Chris has a very, very pleasing look. I think his front shot is what really wins over the crowd and the judges, and he's got a more classic look. It's very difficult. We've had this discussion and even argument at times since the beginning of the division in 2016. What is classic? What are they looking for? At the end of the day, it's a bodybuilding show, but they are judging an overall classic look. So just being the biggest and being the leanest isn't going to cut it in this division.
So do you think Breon has less of a classic look after winning after a few years? I mean, or do you think? 'Cause, I mean, do you think every competitor understands truly what they're looking for in order to be considered classic?
I think it has to do with the way you present your physique and just the way you look. Some guys just genetically, some guys just look like they come from a different era. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I don't think that it's that Breon necessarily got worse or less classic. The first year we competed, Chris wasn't around.
Hmm.
Chris was coming up; he was very young. So at the time, I feel like every champion at the given time, they're the best, right?
Hmm.
And right now in the classic physique division, it's become so competitive, and we have so many genetically gifted athletes, but a lot of them aren't even close to the top five because they're young, or maybe they're not putting in the work that they should be, but they're just not developed enough.
Hmm.
So some of the guys with the most beautiful lines aren't up there yet. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
the top five are the guys that have a mixture of everything, but more so size and conditioning. If you have a very, very pleasing physique and beautiful lines and you look quote unquote classic, but you don't have the size, you're not going to be up there. You're not going to get compared to those guys.
Hmm.
So Chris has the size. He's very polished. I have to hand it to him. Even with his health problems, he comes in very polished, and him and his coach dial him in really well. They do a great job with that, and he's got a pleasing look. If you want to go muscle by muscle, is he gonna beat out a George Peterson in a bodybuilding competition? No, and he knows that himself.
Hmm. For sure. How do you feel about Danny Hester? He won the Olympia the first year. That division actually launched at the Olympia, and now he's been kind of placing. I think he's on the top five last time. But do you think he has a chance again to essentially come back and win it?
I'm not a type of guy in sports or in bodybuilding to follow like every show by show and every athlete's conditioning. I probably know the guys in the '90s better than the guys today.
Hmm.
But Danny, I feel like Danny's gotten better since he beat me in 2016. So I don't know if Danny's being getting judged fairly. I think Danny looked good in a lot of shows, and I was kind of shocked, and I thought he got overlooked.
Hmm.
How he's looked in every single show, I don't know. But I think Danny Hester has a very overall balanced and pleasing physique. I think like in 2016, people gave him they busted his balls and gave him a hard time about certain things, his waistline, and he got tighter and he brought it in.
Hmm.
Brought everything together much better. And I saw him progressively get better. And even in when I did the Arnold, which was that 17 or 18? I think it was 17.
17, yeah.
17. I was surprised. I feel like
Hmm.
he's not always getting the placing that he deserves, in my opinion. But he's even with it, he's getting older, and with his age, he looks great. He's at a place where he's balancing it well. The thing about bodybuilding is you're not going to become a top bodybuilder and be the best you can possibly be starting at 40, 50, 60 years old. But if you never stopped
Hmm.
and you keep on training and you keep on training, it becomes easier to maintain a certain level of muscularity. And that's where Danny's at.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
for
don't
sure.
need to. I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't need to lift as heavy and as intense as I did when I was in my 20s to
Mhm.
maintain the muscle that I've gained.
Mhm. Now, what about your placings? Because the first year you got second place, and then I think the next year was third. I'm not sure what it was, but it was definitely you didn't make it. You didn't make it back to the second place, I believe, right?
No, I can't. I fell back every year. I went from second to fourth to fifth, then to eighth. I think my biggest downfall is um, really my weigh-in. I don't want to make excuses, but I have to make weight a day before, day and a half before the show, and that's really thrown me off for several of those shows. I'm having a hard time getting back to the way I looked prior to weigh-in.
Hmm.
If we're talking about 2-3 pounds, is no big deal, but I have roughly 10 pounds, give or take. Now, the thing is, a lot of people start their career in the bottom and they go up. First year I competed as a bodybuilder in any division ever was Classic Physique 2016. I won Pittsburgh, I won New York, I got second at Olympia.
Hmm.
So I started very high, but I was still developing. I was bringing up my back, bringing up my legs, becoming a more muscular individual. All the top guys from then till now have came from 212, came from bodybuilding, had been competing in a bodybuilding show for minimum 5 years, some of them 20 years.
Hmm.
So I think it's a progression and I've gotten better. I think this year's Olympia, my worst placing was my best package. Now, I didn't look great at prejudging, but I think the physique that I had that week, the days before weigh-in, was my most well-rounded, super conditioned, and very balanced. But when I had to drop all that weight, I have a hard time rebounding back, and it also changes the flow of my physique, because when you dehydrate so much and you try to rehydrate, I lose a lot of tightness and control in my waistline.
Hmm.
So
Now,
it's kind of been the past 4 years for me, getting better, evolving as a bodybuilder, getting more experience under my belt, and also figuring out this weigh-in.